Hello, this is Will Faerber from Art to Ride, and today we're having a look at Megan Fury and her horse Rusty. She's having a great deal of difficulty, she tells me, getting this horse to stretch into the contact. And I'm going to tell her why here in just a moment. What we see here is she's lunging the horse, that this horse is extremely, and actually I've cut off 20 minutes of lunging of this so we could get to the meat of the issue here. This is a horse that is a perfect example of one who bad practices have been let go on for a really long time, and he's on the verge of having very bad, serious back injuries. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't have some kissing spine there. That is that, back where the hips adjoin, where the spine has become so, because it's been hollow for so long. This horse is so rigidly hollow that what you really need to do with him, and as you can see here, he barely even is able to trot behind. He kind of just sort of limps along behind. He's extremely disconnected, extremely pulled up to the neck, and this is the kind of horse that's been going this way for a really long time. And what you have to do with a horse like this is really go back all the way to the very, very beginning. And what you need to do, Megan, is just really get this horse. I really highly recommend that you get a shambone for this horse. You need to send him more actively forward, but this is a horse you have to be careful with because his back is in really bad shape. I can tell you that from here. I would get the saddle off of this horse and just put him in a surcingle for lunging for a while, because you're going to... If it were me, you need to stay off of this horse until you can get him to stretch into the contact and get him moving more fluidly over his back so that he's more comfortable. This is a horse that's moving extremely uncomfortably. And once again, what happens when horses have been ridden for years and years hollow, they just get stiffer and stiffer, and they get in this position like this one is, where his back is like permanently pushed down. If you see how hollow he is behind the hips, and you'll see this more when we get to the pictures of the mounted work here in just a minute, which is why I shortened this clip down, because there wasn't much more I could say other than that. So, Megan, he looks like a really nice guy, though, and your only hope for working like this, and believe me, I have worked many of them that were in this condition that this one is, but have hope, though, because you can bring him back around. But as I said, what you need to do is just not even think about riding this horse for a little while. You need to get the tack off of him and just get him in a surcingle. You got to be very sure that your saddle isn't causing you more problems, and be sure that fits right. That doesn't look too bad, though, from what I see here. I think it's just a matter of getting anything off of his back for a while so this horse can get comfortable and just moving forward. Even if you didn't put anything on him, just send him a little more actively forward. But this is the kind of horse that can really benefit by the use of the shambone, because he's so rigidly inverted, and he's just so used to going stiffly, and he's barely even moving here. He's not really even in a trot. This isn't even really a trot. Though it is nice that once in a while he gives it up a little bit and stretches forward into the contact a little better. So you see the direction that you need to go with him. But this is an example of a very, very severe case. And you're just going to have to go back to the very, very beginning with this horse, put him in a shambone, and just take the time, because it's not going to be easy. Horses like this, when you first put him in the shambone, he's been rigid for a long time. That is, his neck he's been pulling with his shoulders his whole life, would be my guess from looking at him when you see ones that are as sort of upside down, as we say, as this one is. But once again, don't lose hope, and don't think that you're not going to be able to ride the horse. You certainly will in time, but with a severe a case as this, you really have to go back and just kind of start all over again and give them a time. I have one horse right now that I've been working on. It's taken me 9 months to get the horse strong enough to be able to carry weight. But on the other hand, 9 months goes by before you know it, and and then you have a nice horse to ride. So, as I said, now that we see the horse under saddle, we can clearly see how collapsed he is in the back. And once again, when you see behind the saddle there, you see that hole there, and how you have a hip, there's like a bump that up there at the hip. This is a classic example of the horse that is either already has kissing spine or is well on its way to developing it. Once again, this is a horse that's been, it's like a person who spent their whole life with bad posture, and now at an early age, it's already, you're seeing the effects that has on the horse. So once again, Megan, what we really need to do with this horse is just get off of his back. I mean, he looks like a wonderfully nice fellow, and given the opportunity to straighten him out, and believe me, once again, I have worked many that were in even worse shape than this one, and some, as old as 27, and brought their backs all the way back up. So it can be done, but you need to just stay off of his back for a while and give that back a chance to heal up. Because you see, his walk isn't even, it's kind of, see how tenderly, let me put it that way, he steps behind, like very tentatively, like he doesn't even want to pick the foot up off the ground, and then he quickly, puts it back on the ground. Like, he's moving like an old man. Like I said, imagine an old arthritic man all sort of bent over his walker. Well, that's kind of how this horse is walking, and that's probably how he feels inside, because he's been going in this bad posture. As I said, when they're as stiff as this are, and they are as ewe-necked as this one is formed, and once again, look behind the saddle here. This is a good shot of it when you can see how dropped behind the saddle the horse is, and how there is that bump on the top of his hips. And what that tells you is that the spine has been down for so long. Once again, he's very close to developing kissing spine. And once that happens, it can become, almost impossible to bring the horse back. So saying that isn't already happening here. And once again, when you see how he goes into the trot, I mean, this is what, I don't think this horse is lame, but he looks bridle lame, which means he's so out of balance and his muscles are moving so out of sync with one another that he just seems to be, once again, he kind of looks like a man, or two men rather, in a horse suit there, that they just look like they're not moving together at all. But once again, if you go back to our first video that we did of how to engage the horse's back, on YouTube there, that you'll find there's a horse in there that actually looked as bad as this one when we started it and when we got it over its back, and there's a side-by-side photograph on there. So I want you to really go and look at that, because that's a good example, because that one looks about like this one does. But once again, as I said, like a bridle lane, but for that one moment he gives it up there and swings forward. I think he'll come around quickly, but as I said, that's why I would just get off of his back and do this with a sham bone, so he can really get stretched out and begin to understand without any weight up there, because once again, he's moving so badly behind. You see, he doesn't want to, there's no thrust in his back legs. All that's really happening is his front legs are jabbing into the ground, and he's pulling himself forward with the shoulders. That's why the horse has his neck up like that. And you see that ewe-neck on the bottom of the neck, how convex that is. Which tells us he's just stabbing his front legs, and the back ends are kind of just being drug along for the ride. There he has, just look at that brief moment when it does go there. That's what we want it to do. But I feel with a horse like this that you really need to get off of its back. You're having a couple of moments there where it's coming, and you're getting him to swing a lot better here, and this is a lot better. But if you take the time to just spend, it may take 2 weeks, it may take a month before you get back on the horse, but get him in the sham bone and get him to stretch all the way out and down so he looks round over his top line. That is, he starts stretching to the ground consistently before you start riding him again, and you'll see that he will transform. Because once again, I don't see anything here that worries me that I don't think that he'll come back from, but I do see the signs of things that will lead to permanent lameness if you don't solve these problems right now. And that's what usually happens to these kinds of horses. They start going down this road and they get to about this point, and then they start getting traded off. They become so bad that the people that can afford it dump them and they get something else, and this one passes on to the next person who takes it a little further down the wrong road, and they just get so bad they sort of become unrideable and lame, and then they end up as pasture ornaments. And that's really too bad, because a horse like this, every horse should have, at least 20 years of good work in them, if not more, if they're taken care of, and they can. So once again, and here's even a closer shot. Once again, look at the hip, how dropped the spine is ahead of the hip, and that's, once again, that's the first signs of kissing spine there, and then we never want that to happen. What kissing spine is, once again, is the top ridges of the spine actually become so pressed down that they start rubbing into each other, causing the horse a sort of chronic soreness across its back. But once again, I see what a nice horse he is. He's very well-meaning. He looks like he'd make a nice horse. The poor guy is kind of the guy, you can see these kind of, how long suffering a horse like this, because in order to have gotten in the shape that he is, he must have had some pretty, pretty long years of really bad riding to get in this kind of shape, and then they sort of just give it up, they sort of give up, so to speak. But you see how even in his eye, he has that kind of, he doesn't look like there's any joy in him about what he's doing there, because as he knows, as I said, I can imagine he's like a crippled old man that's being, asked to try to do something, and he's just not in any kind of physical shape to carry weight at all. Once again, look how haltingly he steps in the walk, like he can just barely pull those hind legs off the ground in order to take the next step forward. So once again, whenever we see that, we need to just get off the horse's back, go back to the lunging work, and really get him stretching through and down. The sham bone is the best bet for this kind of horse. And get off his back for a little while till we really see him stretching consistently, and then get back on. And I think you'll have a nice horse here if you're willing to spend the time to do it. And he doesn't look the nice thing about this kind of horse, it's kind of like getting a dog from the pound, when they've had a bad life and you start treating them correctly, and feeding them good food and taking care of them in the correct way and being sure their feet are as they should be, they turn around. You see the life come back in their eye. I mean, once again, it's not only, I tell people, I don't need to get on a horse to tell you how it's been trained. I only have to look at the muscling. Here, this is a perfect example. I can tell you exactly how this horse has been trained his whole life, meaning that he's just been allowed to drop his back and he's pulled people along as best he could, with no help from them, and that's how he's ended up like this. So once again, we just need to go back and start all over again. Again, look at the back here. Look how hard it is for him to take those steps. His back leg, it looks like a man's, kind of every footstep looks like glue, like he's stuck in glue, in order to pull that back leg up, because he's not really using the back end to propel himself forward. And once again, I want you to look at his eye here. He looks like such a kind guy, but he kind of has that kind of checked out look, like he's really not interested in what you're doing here. And when you see horses and they really start to work and really become companions, you see that look in their eye really change, and you look and you can see that they're enthusiastic about the work that they do, and they're looking forward to coming out every day and doing it. So once again, same thing here. We're back in the trot, and we see this same sort of, as I say, what we call bridle lameness. What I mean by bridle lameness is an irregularity caused by, not so much this rider. You have actually a very nice position. And when you learn how to figure out what to do with the horse here, and we get him straightened out, you'll be fine. So you're not hindering him. I don't mean by that you've caused this, but just by not being taught how to carry weight correctly over his life. And look, and in just a moment, he's going to come up and stretch a little bit. And look for even that moment, how much better he looks when he gets himself down there for just a few moments. So you're on the right path. And I'm not saying you couldn't get there without continuing to ride. But I mean, with continuing to ride, but what we really want to do is take a step back with this horse and go back to the beginning and really I can tell here just looking at him, he doesn't really trust the bit. He doesn't soften to it. He's just braced in this sort of permanent upwards position, even though he has let down a little bit when you've gotten him to swing a little more, and that's a little better. But even when he swings out, you see there's that rigidness and there's that irregularity. Something looks off. He doesn't, the legs aren't swinging together. This is another perfect example. If you watch the front and hind leg that are supposed to be moving together, that is the outside foreleg and the inside hind leg, you'll see that in this particular case, the front leg is moving before the hind leg is, and it is on the opposite diagonal as well. So look very closely, because once again, that cohesion of the two ends that give the horse that really beautiful balanced cadenced look can only happen if the horse is working through his back. And look at upper level dressage horses the next time you are looking at some upper level dressage horses, and ask yourself, is that hind leg coming through, or is it doing something almost similar to what you're seeing this horse do, only perhaps it's a better moving horse and hasn't degenerated to the point that this one has. But as I said, this is the kind of horse that you got to look at, and you've got to go. If you don't solve this problem now, you will have major veterinary problems with this horse. I mean, kind of like buying an old car, that has no suspension, and you got to put the suspension on it, and then it may last you another 20 years or another 200,000 miles. But if you don't, what you're going to end up with is just a lot of vet bills and a lot of heartache. But you look like a lovely lady up there riding this horse. You're doing a great job. You're staying nice and balanced, and I think for what you can do on him, you're doing a good job. And your position looks good. And then the saddle fit, from what I can see here, does not look bad, so I don't think I could blame any of that on that. It's not bad. If you've got a cushion pad underneath as well, you should. But once again, what I'm seeing here is a horse simply does not have enough strength to do the job you're asking it to do, which is to carry you at the moment. So we need to just go all the way back once again, to the lunging, put him in the shambone. And once again, when I advise you to do these things, always go back and look at the video on that and be sure you do this and you take your time and go through all the steps that I go through in the video, so that you're sure that you're safe and you get the best result, which is what we want. All right, so once again, this is Will Faerber from Art to Ride. It's been great to see this horse, and I really look forward to seeing this horse again. I want you to implement what I'm talking about here, which is to, get off his back, get the tack off, just get yourself a lunging surcingle and just lunge in that for a while till we're sure. And I'd like to see you send in another video to me of this horse just lunging with just a surcingle on, with the shambone, and take your time with it. Once again, watch my video, and then send me another video with him just lunging when he starts to stretch, and let's see how that goes. But I think you'll have a nice horse here. I think it's worth taking the time. So thank you for sending in your submission, and I look forward to seeing your follow-up tape when you can spend the time to get that there. Once again, thanks. See you next time.